Hi.
Hi, Samar Maakaroun. Probably يمكن the only podcast or interview طالع فيها حدا عم بقول عائلتك صح, right?
Yeah, yeah, with the aim.
وذعين,
Thanks.
right. But you're known in the West by Samar what? What do they call you?
Macaroon. Sometimes, I mean, I get different sounds, different phonetics.
All right.
I take anything. It's fine.
But Samar Maakaroun, heck, it's more poetic. I like it. It's more...
Yeah.
Thank you, Samar, for being with us. And I'm very excited for today's podcast. And I would like to start by, I'm going to introduce you very quickly. However, I would like أنت ترجعي to introduce yourself the way that you like. Samar, you're Lebanese born. You're in London currently. You're a partner in Pentagram, one of the biggest or the most important design agencies on the planet. And this is something I'm very proud of, being Lebanese. You had your 20 years into the design world, branding between the area here, our region, Dubai, in the West. So I think we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm super excited for this. Inti, what you would like to highlight about yourself for the audience اللي عم بيسمعك اليوم, taking into consideration that we have designers, art directors, people working in Lebanon, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. So what do you think you need to highlight?
Well, first, thank you for having me and for, preparing this wonderful introduction. I think you've done a great job. I mean, I guess it will come through the rest of the recording. I guess I define myself as a designer, and design, maybe when I started design, I didn't think I'll end up at Pentagram. Probably on some level when I was 16, 17, I didn't even know of Pentagram. I guess like the way we define Pentagram is the biggest independently owned design agency in the world. So it's owned by the designers who are partners within the group. So we're not like WPP, we're not owned by a group of entrepreneurs or like financiers. It's actually the designers who do the work, who own the business. And that business model is unique in the kind of grand scheme of design agencies. I'm great to be here with you, and I hope we'll have a maybe inspiring conversation for everyone who's listening. Thank you for the listeners who are watching this.
We will. We will. Let me start by Pentagram. Lana, you mentioned the business model, which is quite unique. For someone like me, being in the design industry for the 20 years, ودايما بلحق Pentagram, دايما بعرف في partners ومرة طالع panelist with a partner, بس ما بحياتي فهمت exactly how it works. So it's a democratic partnership. Is it a collaboration on a big scale? So how does it work? And this is أنا هيك I'm interested يعني to know actually does it work? And now that you're inside.
Question. Starting with the hardest questions. So yes, a little bit about the model itself. So the model was started some 54 years ago in London by 5 partners and 5 designers who wanted to run their own businesses. But at the same time, they wanted a shared platform, or they wanted to learn from each other and sort of exchange and collaborate. And it grew today to about 250 people. We have 24 current partners in 4 cities, Austin, Berlin, London, and New York, London and New York being the 2 bigger offices.
Yeah.
The idea of the business is that I think is really fundamentally for me also like the interest of joining this group is that it's kind of based on, we took the model from law firms. So law firms have the word partner because partner in the design industry means nothing. What does it mean? Effectively, we're creative directors. That's sort of how we operate. But the beauty of the model is that it's a model based on difference, actually the variety of our voices and the variety of our maybe visions and expertise and projects helps the group cross-fertilize and sort of keep it alive. And also it's a continuous model. So partners come in, they serve a tenure, and then they retire, and then new younger partners come in. So the difference in age group in the group is quite big. We have the youngest at 35, the oldest at maybe 78. So there is no kind of age gap, and we're all operating in design today. It doesn't mean that the person who's older is less. Actually, it's more experience. So the experience cross-fertilizes the sort of energy and young talent and vice versa. And I guess the nice thing about what we do to share is we meet twice a year. We sort of stop the work for 3 days. We go to a separate location. This is the only way to get us away from our teams and our kind of running projects. A sacred time. In a way, we sort of go and we talk about all aspects of the business. But the best part is when we do the presentations every night, we share 3 or 4 presentations, and partners kind of share what they've been up to in a way. But in those presentations, not just the case studies, because obviously we're all under NDA, we're the same company. So we see maybe under the bonnet, how did the project start? What happened? What were the hurdles? And then you learn from these presentations. They're so inspiring, and not 2 partners are the same. We all share one thing, which is our love for design and good design in a way. Now, when it comes to, does it work? So does it work from a business management point of view? Yeah. Is this where a question is?
Yes. And does it work for you? هلا بنحكي about you لأنه I'm very much interested to know how you become a partner. يعني what was the spark for the first conversation with Pentagram? Because I think the audience needs to know that you started your own agency in 2021, and you had to, ما بعرف if this is true or not, but I would say that you sacrificed that to join Pentagram. So let's start and answer me if does it work, وبعدين نرجع نحكي about
So maybe yes. So first, like as a job partner, you cannot apply to be a partner. There's no job opening that people can kind of target partners and say, here, I think I can be a great partner. So basically, Pentagram calls you. So at the moment, this is me and my partners. And the way it works internally is that one of the partners or maybe 2 of the partners would say, okay, we think this person is doing very interesting work. New for us, it will make us, expand our sort of field of operation in a way. It will expand our mind. We think the work is great. They're often awarded. So that's kind of what the work has to be great. There's no kind of negotiation on that front. Then there comes the other aspect, which is, can they do business? Because some designers just want to do their thing, and they sort of define themselves between art and design, and they don't want to run a team, and they don't want to sit in boardrooms and sort of discuss business decisions, direction. Maybe they just like to be solo. So you need that element of being able to do the commercial side as well as being able to collaborate. Which brings me back to what you said, like, does the model work? Because in London, we are 10 partners. We had to move last year. So it took us about a year to decide on the building, how to decorate the building, how does it represent us.
So it's a tricky decision making.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. We're slower when you make collective decisions, because you have to account for everybody's needs and sort of point of views and what they see this kind of move to be. So we're a little bit slower than, if you're one person, you just kind of pick a building and move. But also what that means, that the best ideas rise to the top. So, because you have 10 brains kind of working on one thing, you end up with the intelligence really surfacing, and all the ideas sometimes, like, we float a lot of ideas all the time, and some of them don't really happen. But that's because other people think, okay, well, this is going to mean like this. Because obviously when you're running a business, you make best guess assumptions about, okay, let's do this. You have to trial it. So we kind of test it out, stretch it across the variety of people, some of whom have been at Pentagram for 40 years, are more familiar with the history. Some of us are newer, more energetic, probably want to. So there's a kind of like balance, but it takes time. It's not really, and patience, I think, as well.
That's a polite way to describe it. Right?
I mean, I think
أنا هلا عم بتخيل decision making when 10 people in the room, they try to make a decision, and me myself being the CEO of Firma Queen, يعني if I'm باخد 9 making a decision, I think that would be a headache. But definitely not anyone is a partner and at Pentagram, and I think that makes it إذا بدك هيك interesting conversation. يعني عبالي هيك في نهار, let's see, be in the room and listen how you guys debate or make a decision. Anyways,
I guess I didn't finish answering your question. How did I get to Pentagram? I guess there's a part So I had actually collaborated with some of the partners. I've done a project with Angus Highland in London. We rebranded the whole portfolio of Abu Dhabi Media in Dubai. A year later, I think Dominic Cooper reached out. He had a creative pitch, a paid creative pitch, because we don't do the free ones. We believe like people paying for creative pitch is just a sign of they're serious and they respect the work.
100%.
So he kind of said to me, I don't have time to do it, but if you want to do it and we win it, then we can sort of go for it. So it was for the city of Diraiya, which is a huge development in Saudi, and we ended up kind of pitching for it, and we worked with a wonderful woman in Saudi called Princess Dina Nahar.
It's a beautiful brand, Diraiya.
We delivered the whole project. So this kind of helped that actually the partners knew me because they've worked with me. It sort of reassures a little bit the group that it's not too far. You're bringing someone who's going to be very hard to kind of bridge the culture with. And then the second thing is I had decided to set up my studio in 2021. And that was for me, it was about time. I felt like I had enough experience to do that and I may as well try. And what's the worst that could happen? So that sort of perhaps got them to see that I have a drive and I can do the business because I was doing the business. So in a way, it's sort of, again, another level of reassurance. We have a lot of people we work with whose work we love, but sometimes you need to kind of know, because once you're announced as a partner, everybody's invested in your success. It's not necessarily, you don't want things to go wrong in a way.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough as it is to run a team in London and everything's expensive. So you want to make sure that the selection process is well thought through and well thorough. And the process takes very long. So you talk to all the partners. It takes about a year minimum. You fly to New York, meet the New York partners. Yeah, it takes time. And then they discuss the work at several times when you're not in the room. And then eventually they do a couple of votes at the beginning to start talking to someone. And then at the end to say, okay, do we like this person? Is anybody worried about, what kind of person they are? So you don't really know whether it's going to go through until you're told like it's been voted unanimously. So it has to be everyone. So if someone objects, it sort of steers the group, and then they have to kind of go through the objection and understand where it's coming from and debate it. So that's why, like, it's not really, there is a lot of secrecy about how this happens, and it's not like formulaic. It's a little bit more organic. But I guess in my case, when I started talking to the group, I was like, why not? It sounds like an interesting thing. But I asked for it to be faster because I was running a business, and I was like, I need to know where I'm focusing, here or there. So within a year, they kind of told me that I was voted in. I'm like, okay, that's exciting. And I didn't precisely give up right to left. I actually got my team with me, and I'm still doing the same thing, but from Pentagram. So a bigger platform, more support, and sort of, yeah. So I didn't give up anything for this in a way.
And a more prestigious umbrella, right?
Yes,
Sad.
Exactly. So under that umbrella. But I'm still doing the same work because actually the idea as well is that you have independence of partners in the work they choose to do, how much they price for it, who they choose to go after. So there is no really limitations on the type of business you want to build from Pentagram, unless it's something bad or, so we're all kind of aligned in terms of doing good with design. But there is no limit on, like, if you want to do a pro bono project, we all do it actually. All of us sort of take, have some sort of love for something where we indulge, our sort of free side into that thing.
Yeah. Samar, let's go ahead to a broader creative landscape. في شيء لفت لي نظري last time when we were chatting. You mentioned in a way or another that you find yourself to be the minority in a room.
Yes.
وهيدا هيك لفت لي نظري. I don't know if you meant as a woman on this, as a decision maker, or as an Arab. So this is something that triggered me, and I think it's worth talking about or to understand is the landscape of this industry. هون noting that I would like to say something that at least in our region, women they have a big role that they play, and we see that this is growing more and more. And I would say that at Firas Mghames, at least more than 50% of the directors they're women. So I was surprised that you in London making or هيك mentioning it. So unless if you meant something else. So please, خبريني.
I guess I was surprised too when I arrived to London. I thought maybe because of the narratives around, like, you know, freedom of women in a way, the kind of mainstream narratives I'm talking about, like basically you would think that you will find more women in leadership positions in the UK in the creative industries. And I was surprised as well to find myself being like, okay, the only woman in a sort of senior team, maybe one more woman, but we're never the majority. We're always like, and it's gender-based more than it is sort of race-based. Some of the statistics that I'm not sure I can verify, but a while ago I read that only 3% of companies have female creative directors in the UK. And when I started my studio, I also read about a statistic about like very few studios are started by women. And it's sort of, and it got me thinking, I got that stat, which feels a little bit exaggerated, so I'm not sure where it came from. But I thought, okay, did I list ammo somewhere? Like, you know, is there...
في Jessica Wolf, she mentioned this, وأخذت هيك big boss that she mentioned 0.1% or when lab founded. But irrelevant if it is 0.1 or 1 or 3, the idea it's that dramatic يعني هالقد واطي يعني, and this is very surprising. يعني أنا هلا in my mind if I look at the scene that at least the playground اللي احنا بنلعب فيه, I'm irrelevant of the multinationals. I'm بيجي أقول the design agencies, the one that really كبروا branding agencies. It's not يعني again coming from someone in the Middle East. لا, we're doing good يعني إنه.
Yeah, so. and I actually wanted to think about this and understand really what I've done some research about it as well, because I get asked this question a lot. So I guess like why is that the case? I think at entry level, there's a lot of women. There's a lot of women graduates actually in colleges. You find maybe percentage of women is higher than percentage of men. They start to drop off as soon as they go up. Like, so, you know, the more senior it gets, the more women drop off. Why is that? I think one reason I can think of is childcare costs. And this is not just me. I read about this in the kind of, so childcare costs in the UK are really high. So if you, let's say, work in the industry for 10 years, this is about the time when you start getting promoted to kind of have a little bit more say in the kind of direction of a business. Yeah. And you need like the other 10 years where you sort of build a little bit of a backlog. This is about the time where women have children, but the childcare cost in London is so high that sometimes it actually, and also you have the mother's guilt, like you put your child in nursery and you go to work, and actually the money you earn from your job doesn't necessarily cover your childcare costs or just about covers it. And plus the guilt, a lot of women drop out because of this, drop out of the industry. So you create a break to spend time with their children. While, for example, in the Arab world, you have your mother, you have a grandmother, you have your sister, your cousin.
True. You have a full support system.
Thought about.
You have a full support system.
Exactly. So it's that the tribe is still there for you. The other thing, I guess, like to think about is the role model cycle as well. The less women that are at the top, the less young girls can kind of look at people to kind of see it to be it in a way. So that also is a self-fulfilling sort of cycle in a way. You also have the kind of generated, social network of men, for example, and this always bothered me in Dubai. I'm not sure if it's still the same. The business lounge is translated in Arabic, Salat Rijal al-Amal. The assumption being only Rijal al-Amal, So for me, it's sort of like when I saw this translation, I'm like, surely this should change in today's world. Although they do have a lot of women in powerful positions. But that sign, like, is not an inclusive sign.
تعرفي ولا مرة منتبه له. True. ولا مرة منتبه له. يعني ولا مرة, يعني كلمة دايما I always see it in Dubai, in the whole, يعني كل العرب world, بس ولا مرة it meant something to me.
Exactly. هي بتكون سهلة الأعمال كتير بسهولة, يعني إذا حدا عم يسمعني بليز غيروه.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's kind of also like, this whole idea of circles or perception, right? Unconscious bias. Sometimes you find yourself in a room where you see that the board of the company is all men. And I know for a fact that if, let's say, I am a man and I'm presenting the same work, they're more likely to trust me, because there will be one of them at least, or maybe a collective, the behavior. There is something called unconscious bias. And then when it comes to perhaps like this, how this unconscious bias manifests in the workplace, and there is no such thing as an unbiased workplace. I mean, everybody's biased, I believe. Hopefully, like, you know how to identify your bias and kind of work with it as you grow. But it falls on women harder because we're more sensitive. We are told to, we grow up being told to look after people around us. So when you sort of hear something that's a little bit on edge, you sort of think, okay, is that me or is that them? And then the final thing about leadership, I think, is also, again, about perception. So to be a woman in a leadership role, you need to be able to say no. You need to be able to kind of push back, protect your team, sometimes be a little bit disagreeable, like you disagree because you don't agree with everybody else. And I think women find that harder to do. And if they do it, they get judged much harshly. And there are also plenty of studies about this. In a book, I think, I don't know who's the study name, where they kind of change the name of the character, and they sort of say, they put the male's name or a female's name, and people think the man is confident and, he knows what he's doing, while the woman is difficult and hard to work with. And this is just the world we live in. And I think all of these things contribute to perhaps less women wanting this, I guess, and wanting to kind of carry on with it. We are judged much harsher in that context, I guess.
makes a lot of sense. So it's weird يعني in this specific industry اللي هي مفروض تكون liberated أكتر from other industry. It's not a classic industry. It's not يعني our trade عمرها 100 سنة ما عمرها ألف سنين. So anyways, but it's very interesting perspective.
One more thing about the women, why it's different in the Middle East. I don't feel the same, actually. I think there's something about the mother figure, how men kind of build their reaction to women based on, how much they respect their mother, how much they kind of love their mother. And for us in our culture, the mother is everything, right? If you had a good childhood, your mother looks after you, respect her. And this is where the contrast comes, right? In Saudi, for example, you find a lot of respect. Like it's if you obviously they trust your expertise, you see a lot of that respect. While here it's kind of a little bit, for me, more varied and nuanced. And I'm not sure, I didn't grow up here, but I know that in Arab cultures, mothers are like sut dunya, right? Like they sort of do everything for you. And if they're wise women, they raise men that are perhaps less biased or more able to sort of engage on an equal sort of level. This is me just kind of
true. I relate a lot to that. Being a Lebanese or being someone that works in a lot of Arab countries, it makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about فتنا بالعرب world. When Arab brands work with Western agencies, and I'm sure you've seen this trend, it's been, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. وهلا I can say that عم بتزيد خاصة هلا بالسعودية. But the ideation typically starts in English. وخاصة the creative leaders, they're Westerners, they don't understand Arabic nor the culture. However, you can see that there's a fundamental flaw. They're creating a brand, an Arabic brand for the Arab region, for Arab people. So the brand will live, will breathe in Arabic, being the language. We are in communication business. وانت هلا why I'm interested to know your point of view, because you've been here, you're part of our culture, you're part now, you actually live in London, you are in creative leadership position. So how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very big question, I guess. Like we can't, I don't want to lump all clients or like all nations within one group, but it's got like a lot of pillars that we can talk about, which is mainly like perhaps good design, bad design, and then good client, bad client. We can go there, right? So So maybe let's start with good design, bad design. What is good design? So in my experience, good design is, after a wealth of experience in any one field. So you've done enough of something, so it becomes your area of expertise. You see a lot as well. So sometimes you are good with the tool, but your exposure to the world and to what's out there is not yet fully developed, which means in a way you could end up creating something that already exists or copying something accidentally. So exposure to what's out there is important, and this is time, right? You accumulate it. You see more, and you see more, and it kind of grows and grows. The ability to think, because at the end of the day, to create a brand identity, our task is to understand what this business or entity is about, and to sort of give it a form. Without defining it, you cannot give it a form. You need to define what this thing is, be it a new company or be it an existing company who's changing its logo. So we need to ask the right question and think with the client to understand what they actually want to create. And the final thing, which I think probably is not so sophisticated in Arab art, is the craft. And they say like the last 20% of any project is where the detail happens. And a lot of clients in the Arab world, they skip that phase. They're like, okay, but there you go, I see it, this is the logo. But there's a whole due diligence part of like scaling it up and small and looking at the sort of ink traps, the colors, doing the color proof. There's a bit of detail.
The application and variation.
Yeah, at Pentagram, we are very keen about, because it shows when something is not fully finished, even if the client cannot see it. And often they cannot. But for us, the detail is incredibly important. So in terms of like the depth of perhaps the design industries in Saudi Arabia or in Dubai or in Qatar, like I know for a fact that in Beirut, I was one of the second or third generations of graphic designers. So we're relatively recent when it comes to for example, the UK or the US. For the longest time, biggest part of designers were actually people who studied in London and then came back to set something up in Beirut or in Egypt or in Cairo. So that's just the nature of the industry in general. And the people who used to do design are calligraphers. So they're actually more, because of the script, they used to kind of draw script, and now some of them are artists. But usually if you wanted a sign done or a yafta, as you'd say, you'd go to a calligrapher, they would do a drawing for you and they put it up and it's done. There's no process, no work stream, none of this kind of like modern type licenses, none of this, right? Like this is how people understand design. So I guess that it's natural that you want to actually gravitate to somewhere where there is a little bit more experience. But at the same time, again, how do you do that? So in my experience, most clients don't know what they want. And it's our job to help them work out what they want and why, and whether it's right, what they think they want or not. And the best work comes from good relationships and trust in the process. They don't come from, oh, okay, I just commissioned these guys. You can commission the best designers in the world, but if the process is broken, you won't get good work because you don't get approval, you don't get consensus. People are not rallying around the same ideas. And this is kind of what brings me to maybe talking about good and bad client behavior. Synergy is important in our working process because we work in collaboration with our clients. We need to understand what they're trying to achieve to be able to give them a form and an identity. In vacuum, it's not a supermarket to go and buy a brand and like, let's say a cornflakes package. It doesn't work like this. And then it comes to actually what is the product? How relevant is it to geography? So for example, if you're doing a protein brand, right? This is very, very scientific. As long as the ingredients in the protein brand are kind of vetted by a body, international body, you don't necessarily need to do it in Saudi if it's in Saudi, or you don't necessarily need to do it in Dubai if it's in Dubai. You could do it whatever you want, whoever you find synergy with. But when you actually are doing something close to identity, as in you're branding a place or you're branding something that talks about the culture, this is where it can get, you get into stereotypes, perceptions, who perceives who defines who. So you need to have people who know and are specific about the form, the script, and the cultural insights. And that's not necessarily to say only an Emirati can make an Emirati brand. This is not about creating borders. It's more about expertise, asking the right question, being able to manipulate the form and the script, and being able to actually navigate those worlds instead of churning out stereotypes, right? If you're branding a place that you've never been to, that you don't know anything about, you're going to have to spend a month doing the research to understand what this place is about. And obviously your stereotypes or what you know about this place comes into it. And this is where it can get a little bit, this is why you see a lot of brands are like churning out patterns as solutions to everything related to the Arab world. And for me, this is like the first obvious thing. We have a lot more to offer than that thing. And it comes from the easiest within the time, within the budget given. This is sort of why this happens. So that's kind of why, I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah.
You did, but I will try to get from you a black and white answer. Can I try? Okay. Do you think Arab brands delegate to Western agencies out of search of prestige? Yes or no?
I don't know. I really can't answer this. I'm not in their heads. I have no idea why they do it. You know, I'm actually surprised if someone delegates.
لأنه they have a lack of confidence, or لأنه what you said, that there's more expertise. This is a trade much more developed in the Western world. Then you work with clients. You work.
Yeah.
I'm aware that a lot of people that they follow you, they know that you worked on the launch of Apple in the Middle East or in the Arab world. You worked on the city of Dubai. You worked in Abu Dhabi on the Abu Dhabi media. So you worked on Diriyah, but you mentioned you've been exposed to the clients, again being the bridge. Definitely you have a sentiment or an opinion on that. So I'm trying to get a clear black and white answer.
Why do they come?
لأنه this is a debate. In our region, this is a debate. And what's wrong? And no, we create the love brands. بنعملوا بالاgencies here, the big campaigns and all this. But when it comes to the big brands, the telecom, all these stuff, Diriyah, for example, they go and bring the big agencies or the more legacy agencies. أنا عم بحكي branding هلا، ما عم بحكي advertising.
Okay, I think maybe on some level the talent is still young. So, you know, if I'm trying to think about, I don't know, someone who is 55 years old or 60 years old who has done this for 40 odd years, can you think of anyone, designer, who is not an artist or a calligrapher who has done this? The talent is still young in our regions. The talent is
very few. Exactly, very few.
So, and then what that kind of leads me to, so what I'm trying to do is not to say this is better or that is better. I'm actually trying to break the borders. In my process, I have people from both sides in every stage. So I call it co-creation. So basically in the strategy stage, you have people who understand both worlds. So you cross-fertilize the expertise, you cross-fertilize the ideas, you cross-fertilize everything. So we have access to the best expertise, the best talent in the world from Pentagram. But also I'm fully aware of, like, for example, if I'm doing a project in China, I will need a Chinese designer or a Chinese strategist on board. I wouldn't address it as, all right, okay, I can do this. I wouldn't assume I know enough about the place, although my sister-in-law is Chinese. You know, I've been to China many times, but, you know, I wouldn't assume that I can manipulate the form or the type or be able to actually build a good relationship with the people I'm working with. So for me, this is where it is. Now, the prestige question, maybe the prestige comes from, you know, awards or perception. I don't know how people perceive prestige.
Samar, talking about awards, how do you feel about the relationship between Arab creatives, being in advertising or branding or design, and the Western award bodies?
Yes.
Are we designing to win Cannes, Lyon, judged by people who don't speak our language? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. So I cannot comment on Cannes Lyon because I've never been to Cannes and I don't do advertising.
أنا قلت لأنه أخذت the most mainstream.
DNAD, yeah, DNAD is the equivalent for graphic designers. Awards a few awards, and I guess like the award bodies today, when they build a jury, they are trying to make a jury that is as mixed as possible. So often on a jury, you might get one Chinese speakers, one Arabic speakers, or someone who can read the script. They try to actually build a really mixed group so they can judge. But the reality is that the majority of the work is always going to be English. And the majority of the judges, actually all the judges will be able to speak English because that's part of being in a DNAT jury.
Yeah.
So that means that sort of on some level, if you send work that's purely in Arabic, it needs more work for you to contextualize it, to explain what you did, to make it absolutely clear. And bear in mind, actually, judges in DNAD, they don't spend a lot of time on every entry because they have to judge about 600 entries. So they're not going to spend an hour trying to understand you. So this actually puts you at harder. You have to jump higher in a way in terms of like sending an award to DNAD. Now, but that is not DNAD's fault in a way. It's actually, where is our DNAD? I think that's what I'd like to see form in the future. Like in a way, you have lots of rich countries who can set up award bodies, collaborate with these existing entities. We started DNAD as one of the founders of Pentagram set it up, but now it's a sort of group of people who run. They are well seasoned into doing this. And the reason it's very important is because it's gone on for a long time. And they consistently maintain quality. It didn't get corrupted. No one is bribing no one to get an award. It's really hard to get a pencil. And they kept it like this, which means that, if this gets set up in the Arab world, what I worry about, I mean, obviously it should get set up. What I worry about is that it becomes scratch my back, I scratch yours, right? So it's very hard to keep these things sort of, to keep the sort of status, especially with the way things work, right? Like someone who's connected to someone, you have to give them an award. This is what you worry about. How do you actually set standards for what is good and what is bad? And how do you make this sort of logical and reasonable, not about connections and families and all of this? This is really the question. Because designers do agree on that, but we don't really have a body or an entity that judges quality. And I think it's really well overdue to have one. And I'd like to be involved if anyone's listening to this.
So if I invite you one day to set up a sort of D&D for the region, بنسميها شيء عربي, and literally we know the territory that and the play field. تقبلي الانفيتيشن تبعي؟
It's a lot of work. It's like another job. You are aware of that. It's not really very easy to do this. It's not something you do on the side.
We start small. I will try to convince you. تاخذ منك commitment.
I think like collaborate with DNAD and set up a DNAD for the region, or maybe a jury or type of award that is actually more scripture, like especially in typography. It's relevant in typography. With advertising, maybe the advert is in English. You can apply. I don't know if you can understand it, but when it comes to script, typography, brand identity, especially in things related to stuff that are quite local, then you need a different type of jury. I mean, maybe DNAD will hear me and they will do this. One for Chinese, one for Arabs. Be cool. Linguistic. Yeah.
We can create this initiative أنا وياك من بعد البودكاست. خلاص. I promise myself. Samar, one of the things I was surprised about when I was preparing the podcast. I didn't know about you. I follow your page. I follow a few things that you've been doing. But ضمن research, I found out that you spent many years as set designer مع ربيع مروة. And that was I stopped عليه. جربت أربط القصص ببعضها. So which is you took I read it somewhere on the internet, it was around 15 years or something. So كيف حدا set designer working on in theater or بعالم يعني في scene في layers, there's a dialogue, you need to integrate this with that. كيف ساعدتك what you are doing today? And when it comes to the same set design or the same theoretical piece, you can see that it's being differently perceived بكل بلد. يعني in Tokyo something, Berlin different audience, Beirut different audience. وين ساعتك? Is it maturity in understanding the audience reaction? Is it I'm curious to know about that.
Yeah. I mean, my year with Rabia was totally accidental. I volunteered on one of his first performances. I found it enjoyable to actually explore design outside the context of design. And the beauty about theater is it's immediate. And accidents happen in theater. Things happen, like the projector stops working, so you have to be thinking on your feet. The method is similar. You're reading a story with a sequence of images. People enter to a set, and something changes, something happens throughout the show, and then they leave on another image. That's kind of how we used to build the scene. And his set design, I wouldn't call myself a set designer who can build all worlds on stage. It was a lot of work to do with the image. So there's a lot of image, graphic design really. So I wouldn't probably like say I can work with any set designer. It's just an interpretation of images and what sort of emotional impact they have. So it was kind of like maybe تعديت على النصيحة, as they call it in Lebanese. He said he likes, and the good thing about Abia is that he always thought that he likes working with people who are not trained in any one field, because he thinks maybe the training sometimes teaches them things that he has to then do it differently. In his opinion, like working with people who are coming at this sideways, he might get something more interesting. And that's why this collaboration started. The 15 years I was still kind of working in design, and every now and then I would go for a performance here and there. I was naturally maybe drawn to perception, to the idea of perception, because I think in 2005 I had moved to London, and I felt misunderstood constantly. Like I would say things like, oh yeah, that went down well, only to realize that no, they didn't really agree, but they were silent about it, right? So you're sort of trying to cross cultures and trying to sort of understand why does something work, or how do people actually operate in any certain culture? Because there's the language, but then there's all the things around it that you have to live to sort of experience in a way. So I was naturally drawn to this kind of idea of perception. So within any one performance, I would notice when people laugh and then where they didn't laugh. So you watch the silences as much as the sort of expressions. There is always someone in the Q&A, always a Lebanese who asks the same question. Why are you representing Lebanon outside Lebanon in Lebanon? You talked a lot about the performances were a lot about war, or the history of war with some humor, and there's always the Lebanese who's asking, why are you representing Lebanon not in a positive way? Is this a story you choose to tell? And Rebez also was always like, I'm a director. I choose stories to tell. You can choose the stories you want to tell, right? But you don't have to. I don't have to carry the burden of the whole nation. So, and that's kind of how we all feel, I guess, in a way. We cannot carry the burden of like the whole identity in a way. You can just do you.
خلاص already رحبني وفيروز they did it. All this beautiful side of Lebanon وكل شيء. خلينا نحكي القصص موريا. طب as someone that you grew up in Lebanon during the civil war, obviously in a period of chaos, do you think you're more comfortable in a creative chaos? How that influenced you while growing up? أنا هلا عم بجي أحكي as a person and as a بالdesign بالart direction بالcreative thinking. يعني في إذا بدك هالكليشيه which is probably it's true إنه being Lebanese that you push yourself more, you always resilient to this is why we thrive, etc. بس okay, that applies على any trade. That applies for someone in banking, that applies someone in finance and in trading and anything, all right? But as a designer, as an art director, as someone where we are living, or our craft is to make the world a more beautiful world, okay? To a certain extent. Yes, we part of our craft is to reflect reality, yes, with communication, to sell something, but بكتير مطارح we live in a world of beauty. Most of us, I can say, ما بعرف ما عندي statistics, but a lot of us, they went into this craft for the love of design, which is eventually related to beauty. هذا relationship مع لبنان, all this chaos, the war, شرايط الكهرباء, is it حملتيه معك, يعني اخذتيه معك بالباجاج لما رحتي على UK او تركتيه هون ورحتي من دونه؟
I don't think you can leave anything behind. You are your experiences, right, for everybody else. But it's a really interesting way that it shows as well the word beauty to describe like, to link something to the word, because I believe that actually you are more sensitive to beauty when you have seen ugliness or horror, right? So you could, and if you're sad, let's say you've gone through a breakup or something is upsetting you, you will notice that someone is playing piano when you're walking down the street a lot more than if you're just going to work and thinking about what you're going to do and you're absolutely fine, right? So there's something to maybe horror or violence slow you down, and it makes you a little bit more of an introverted person. So I think they go hand in hand, beauty and ugliness, right? Like you sort of, you are more sensitive to what is beautiful because you've seen what is really absolutely horrific in a way.
Yeah.
And as long as this doesn't overwhelm you, and obviously the world today is quite overwhelming. There's cognitive dissonance in how we live as well, in terms of like coping with this. I believe chaos can be creative. And I think for each person, each creative director, we have a method. I am quite methodical in my work, but there is a moment where I generate mistakes and chaos and accidents in the sort of wider process. I like to kind of play in my work. There's also something that's about adaptability in chaos, right? Like nobody gave us 24-hour electricity or health insurance, or so you really are on your own.
Or peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, let's go into process more basic. Yeah.
exactly. So these big things, as I still don't take them for granted. And I think a lot of people talk about the fact that you can wake up and take a hot shower without having to think. While growing up in Lebanon, at that time, you have to actually do a few things to make sure like the water is hot and you don't run out of water. And then, all of these little things that you have to plan. So I guess you get both. Like maybe from on one level, you have to plan to take a shower, or you have to plan when you take a lift ولا بتنقطع بالأسانسير. So that gives you a little bit of like, okay, I need to think about all of these different elements. So there's a method to how you operate in cases of crisis, and it has to be incredibly organized, because if you're not organized and if you're like completely scattered, you might get yourself in trouble. So you have that side, but at the same time, when there's no electricity and you're as a kid, you have to play, you start inventing games, right? And I'm sure you did that as well.
True.
You're like, okay, let's play with this, let's invent this. Every day we're inventing a new game. So it can be quite inventive, depending on the levels of stress that are at any one time. So I think it does build character. I mean, I would hate to say this. I wish we don't have any wars at the moment. But it does make you adaptable, flexible, because that's the only way to survive. And children are better adapters than adults. So I find myself like, the older you are, the more strict you are on the way you like to do things, right? So you have rituals, you have certain ways that I need things to be like this because I don't want more change. But as a child, change is super exciting, and you sort of play and you adapt and you invent, and you kind of don't really understand the political context of war. You still have more hope. You're glad that I'm going to school, and then you're just kind of having fun. Or like, there's a new kid in the school because his house was bombed. So you're like, oh, that's exciting. Let's meet that person. So there are, as a child, you experience it in that way, but I'm not comparing at all to what's happening currently in states of war, because of the civil war in relation to what's happening now. The weaponry has kind of moved on to a whole level of violence.
Definitely.
I think when I was growing up as a child, it was like this, they called them the events. It wasn't even called civil war until after. It did the events, so you could actually flee eternally. You'd go to our cousins on the dates that things weren't good where it was, and then they would come to us. There were a lot of internal mobility. In a way, it wasn't. And as long as no one in your immediate proximity is hurt, you could have some positive. And also, I don't want to talk about all the traumas.
Yeah. Makes sense. Very interesting perspective. Very interesting perspective. Like, I want to go back للبارت البيوتي والبارت الديزاين. I'll be asking you later on about 29 words for 29 letters, but I want to make a small disclaimer. When I was seeing this, what do we call it? A project, right?
Yeah.
So when I seeing this, but what I'm gonna say is irrational, but I'm gonna say it anyways. It made a lot of sense to me that this is very Lebanese مع إنه منه Lebanese. يعني أنا عم بيجي أطلع, it made sense on this is a يعني فيها كتير influence حسيتها من بيروت من كتير شيء. بنفس الوقت the letters are not Lebanese, يعني منه هيدا الخطات منه so صرت يعني حسيت كأنه في شيء in a way or another there's a build up whether choosing the black and white, whether the lines شوية الكهرباء ما بعرف. بالنسبة لإلي it made sense yet I cannot say it. So بنرجع لهيدا بعدين, بس I want to say this لأنه I feel in a way or another as you said يعني your continuity ما في شيء ما بتاخديه معك. So بحس this is one of the projects in a way that حاملة معك بيروت. It makes a lot of sense. Anyways, ليكي industry that's currently I'm sure you can relate to what I'm saying. اللي هي obsessed بالrepresentation والdiversity boxes وكل واحد وين بده ينحط all this. How do you navigate being a diverse partner or this diverse creative or all this? Do you like it? وخاصة انه maybe or موجودة in UK where they make you feel that you are here because you're different other than focusing on the excellence of the work and at what you present?
Not at all, actually. This was very clear when I was invited in. This is not about, because I'm diverse, right? There's a lot of box ticking.
Or بدنا نربح more projects in Saudi Arabia.
Not necessarily. I think like the way I deal with diversity is I think that everybody's diverse in a way or another. So now you have all the neurodiversity. If someone has ADHD, they're neurodiverse. If most of the creatives are dyslexic, right? That's also neurodiversity. So you can think about it like, okay, I want to be diverse in some way because it's cool to be diverse. And you can think about it as just another thing. I don't care. I just get on with my work. Really, I don't pay much attention to that type of perception. I'm a designer like everybody else in the group. I have an interest like everybody else in the group. Not all of us are brand identity. We have a product designer, we have a data designer. Like all of these people are different in a way or another. And I joined the group that is all about difference. Actually, difference is good. And that's also my belief in the world.
Okay, my question, not only related to Pentagram, and I'm back about the whole ecosystem or being part of the conversation that's happening in the West or part in UK. Do you feel this is working in your favor, or do you feel انه لا or خلاص simply you eliminate this element? لأنه it is there.
Of, yeah, I guess like with what's happening with ICE, I think in London now, like in the UK, you had Brexit, and I think the sort of Farage supporters are gaining a lot of traction. The whole of Europe is going a little bit more right-wing than I'd like to admit to myself. And the kind of simplification of right-wing parties is anything that is described as other is taking away something from us, right? So I don't really engage, but if someone kind of if I get this argument of like immigrants taking our jobs, this I am an immigrant. I moved to London. I'm not born here, but I created jobs. I'm contributing in thought, in vision, in sort of I'm kind of sharing my design skills with the sort of community. If people don't want to see it or they want to slap you with a label, I mean, it's up to them. You can't really stop them. I think my approach is don't waste too much time. There will always be people who think that way. It's not really worth my time. I'm just doing my thing, I guess.
Cool. Talking about your thing, there's somewhere where you mentioned that your personal projects, 29 words for 29 letters, sorry, is the most satisfying, right? وهون it was surprising for me knowing that again you worked on massive projects like Apple, City of Dubai, that's really on big scale. Now recently I think on Porsche, right? And yet you said that this personal project with no client, no brief, أكيد I assume no money, no business goal is the most satisfying. So how do you see that? Is it passion? Is it a romantic idea of being an artist? However, we're commercial artists and we have this exit to go into this. How do you see it and why?
I guess at the time, I don't know when I answered that question. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. So now, like, I have a few other projects that I have very much enjoyed doing. I guess, like, with this project, maybe tell you a little bit story for how it came to be. I needed to build a website because I had to have a link, something online, and most of my projects at the time were in collaboration with companies that are under NDA. So I couldn't really put some of the work online, or it wasn't long enough. Like, you know how sometimes people say, we don't want the work to be claimed by anybody. So I thought, okay, I need something. Okay, let's use the alphabet and come up with a bunch of words. And then because nobody can read, I'm thinking like whoever's going on the website cannot read Arabic, so I can just pretty much invent what I want. So I went ahead with that idea and sort of picked some words in talks. I used the example of Zankha, which I found myself like in London trying to explain. Once I was in the restaurant, I was drinking a glass of water. The glass smelled of Zankha. I told the waiter, he looked at me as if I'm like an alien of some sort. I'm like, if you had a word for this smell, you would be able to recognize it. If you don't have a word for the smell, then you won't recognize it. And that's kind of what happened. And I felt like I smell it everywhere sometimes in London. I want people to know it exists.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so that I have a regular life. It's very selfish. So that was one of the words. It turns out it actually exists in Italian. Someone once corrected me in one of the talks. And then like the rest were some invites I did for talks. And it was just an attempt to keep things simple and to kind of talk about what my work is about, which is, you know, traveling across languages and forms, and sort of being a bit more playful with Arabic as well, which for me is important. I think there's a lot of work that is being done in sort of like the script, the beauty of the script, and that's all great. But also I see how we work with Latin type with the team. You destroy the type, you really play around with it, and somehow it feels like we haven't allowed ourselves to go there with Arabic. There's a lot of weight attached to the script. And I was like, okay, no one's paying me for this. I remember briefing one of the designers who helped me do the motion, and it was very intuitive, the whole process. So I was like, okay, his name was Miguel Desport. He's working as probably a senior designer now. He's probably at Apple. That's the last time I checked. So he sort of, I said, okay, look, yalla means you can just drop it in a conversation anywhere, and it's just about speed. Yalla, you're trying to get someone to speed. So like do it like two shapes that lock together. So it was all kind of like explaining just quick motions, gesticulations of sorts. It's like type gesticulating in a way to express a meaning. So the motion had to express what each word meant. And yeah, just it was very quick. It wasn't really an overstretched process. And I think also like for me as designer, I work better when I don't do anything and then I kind of think about a brief and then I just sort of sit down, focus time. You sort of pretty quickly can get to where the solution should be. So it's my work. I work intuitively as well with the script, especially if it's by hand and not necessarily on the computer.
Interesting. All right. You said that was 3-4 years ago. So as of now, there's more satisfying projects.
Yeah.
Tell me about one of them.
I don't know if you've seen the Palestine cert.
Yeah, we're gonna add the visuals on the edit later on, so the viewers they can see them. So tell me about the most satisfying project recently.
I think I enjoyed doing Together for Palestine because it worked. This was a charity that approached us in July. They had about 6 artists. They were trying to break the silence on Palestine, on the subject of Palestine. And they said, okay, look, we need a logo and a poster, but we don't really know who's going to be performing. And we have a month, I think, in total, and we need to produce tickets and sell tickets and all of this. I think the joy was that actually it worked. They sold out up to 1 hour of the announce. The vibe in the concert was amazing. Instead of 8 artists, they ended up with a lineup of about 80. And it felt like a moment we all needed. Especially seeing the news of it was more kind of a selfish involvement, really, because in a way, it's been horrible, like reading the news for last years and then pretending, like going to work, doing design and not questioning the reason to be, right? Just how much we have failed as humanity to protect vulnerable people. So to me, it's, so there was that element of just being able to do something about this, regardless of how insignificant it is. Also, a couple of, we've enjoyed working with an AI company in Qatar recently, but I'm not sure I can name it and talk about it. We're still working with them. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Teb, if let's remove Pentagram, the title, the awards, the UK thing, the prestige, all that part. You, Samar, the designer, the art director, I don't know what, just you, what is the thing that you still believe you want to tell, you want to work on, you want to, what's your next personal project, or eventually what the thing بتقولي يا ريت I can do واحد اتنين تلاتة, or I can tell the world something. Is there something that you feel unsatisfied about?
When it comes to design, I think I'm quite lucky to have the life I've had. It was kind of sort of by accident, and also by being in the right place at the right time, and also putting in the hours and the work and listening. I guess I don't feel, I feel actually also I'm lucky with the people who I'm more currently collaborating with, in a way, because we get to shape things that really make a difference in the world. I tend to choose my clients on that basis in terms of who I work with. I have to believe in what they're trying to do. I don't like to, and also I think that's the beauty of Pentagram. We're not kind of ran by designers. So the work is more important than the numbers.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, it's important to all of us to choose projects that we believe in, and we sort of, people who are doing things that we align with and we want to help. In terms of what I'd like to do, I think this is kind of a question for an artist. So if I didn't have to come to work and do all the work, I'd like to write about design at some point, but right now I don't have the time. So maybe one day
in the next pandemic.
Yeah.
حتى من هلا الاوتلاين for the next pandemic, you're gonna have a lot of time to do that.
I can see next pandemic, but we didn't recover from the first one.
I know eventually. أنا personally هلا okay في كتير horror صارت وقصص هيدا, بس إنه there's the other side إنه it was good to هيك to sit to reflect. So actually I'm waiting for it. إن شاء الله ما حدا يصير له شيء. I wanted to take, let's go into the last part of our podcast, and I want to take نركز أكتر على new generation, especially in my mind now that I'm asking you, in my mind I'm talking about the talents in our region, بلبنان, بالسعودية, بمصر. So this is where I'm sure بيصير لك كتير portfolios. I'm sure you're exposed to students. I see that you have a lot of talks and all this. When you see a portfolio, what's the thing هون عم بخدها from a tip perspective, يعني someone to have something to enhance. So what's the thing that makes you instantly سكر البورتفوليو تيجي تقولي I'm not gonna waste my time, or something that makes no, yes, I'm gonna call this person, or I'm more interested. So what do you have to say about that?
So I guess maybe directly talk about the industry, because you're right, we do get a lot of portfolios at Pentagram. So if you're applying to Pentagram, or you're applying anywhere, like in Pentagram specifically, you have to consider you're applying to 21 of 24 partners. So Google the partner. Don't just say I want to work at Pentagram, right? So, and I think this applies in other design agencies. Like if you want to apply somewhere, you have to sort of do your research. Don't just go, hey, I want a job, right? Like, this doesn't go well at all. Keep your emails brief, and sort of, it's all about the work. So I usually look at the portfolio before I read the email. Sometimes I've had emails where people didn't even include the link. I've already read the email, right? Like, you send me another, you're asking me if you want to send your link, but include the link straight away. Like, it's just, if I open the email, I may as well look at your work if I have 5 minutes, if I'm on the train. So don't, like, I think also think of, people who are running businesses will not have an abundance of time to sort of read your whole long letter about the story of your life. We want to see the work. If we're looking for someone, this is the only time we actually click on portfolios. If someone said, okay, I'm a motion designer, I happen to be looking for a motion designer at the moment, I click, I see work, they're probably likely to, I'd give them a freelance job to try them out. And then if they deliver, you kind of move forward. So it's all about kind of being brief, letting the work speak for itself, and being aware as well. Like, sometimes you think your work is great, but actually you need to see what your peers are doing as well in terms of their portfolios. And I guess titles sometimes put us off. Like, we don't have a title of creative director. So if someone is signing their email with creative director, automatically notice, because I don't have that post. That's my job, right? If he's going to apply, we have the maximum is senior designer. And then if they've been with you for a while, they're associates. And associate is like the equivalent of a creative director, but this is what we call them internally at Pentagram.
So I guess
it's sort of do your research, write a short email, let the work speak for itself. Don't put a lot of projects in the portfolio, put the best ones. It's actually better to have 20 pages that are incredibly well crafted and 100 page and so many links, and I'm having to actually work really hard to work out what you're about. So yeah, that's kind of.
If they were from this part of the region, is it a plus? Is it a good thing to have projects done in this region? يعني دايما في هيدا البارت انه I'm applying, I would like to work with the pentagrams of the world and not in our region and in the West. Yet I'm working on local brands, regional brands, Arabic typography. يعني is it by يعني for you it would make sense, but what about the other partners? Is it يعني your advice is skip that بس حط القصص in English? Yeah. يعني your advice if they're applying for other يعني انت لبنانية بس الباقيين they're not Lebanese. Again, I'm not talking only about Pentagram, for even others. Your advice انه remove them or اعملهم in English رجع بعتهم انه.
I think it's about the work. It doesn't matter which language it is. Is the work good? And in my experience, what I've seen from the region, and people do a small. Actually, the titles are overinflated. So what I've like, for example, like here you call yourself creative director, and you're creative directing yourself. Like how many people have you creative directed? So these things people see through, even if they haven't lived or known in Dubai. But it's sort of like really show me the years of experience. You see it in the work, the craft, the attention to detail. Like what is a person about? The thinking. So in terms of like the experience, and I think also there's an abundance of advertising agency, but very little design agencies whose work is kind of respectable and clean. So if you put a portfolio, applying to a design agency, your portfolio is full of advertising. We won't know the campaigns. We won't like the aesthetic. It's just not look great. We are brand identity people, right? So you have to kind of send something that has work that makes sense in a certain in the world of brand identity. And there's a way for portfolios to be done. I mean, you can check websites of people who are working locally. They're clean. There is a level of attention to detail in color, in typography, in form, in presentation. You can see it. The portfolios I've seen come to me, I mean, not everybody. I've seen some really good portfolios from Egypt or sometimes people who traveled and live in Barcelona or any other European cities, but they're rarer than the sort of talent that I get from here. So I guess less is more. If you have an extra language, it's relevant in anything, right? Like you could be Chinese speaker, but how do you actually use the language in your work? That's what I want to know. I don't want to know that you just speak another language. So
you don't see it. I know this is something bad being stuck between two cultures, two languages. بمطرح ما طالع بيطلع انه لا قوي هون ولا قوي هونيك or not.
I see it in typography. I find like the type foundries that create Arabic typefaces are very good with the Arabic, but then sometimes the English is a bit less than. And type foundries that work in English and decide, we want to adopt Arabic if they don't have a skilled person who can work. Their typefaces are a little bit sort of lacking. And I think this is sort of what I'm trying to do in my work, is you need command of the tools in both languages if you are going to talk about good design. Design at the end of the day is color, typography, language, naming. Language comes into naming. Motion, right? How does something move? Can you control that? And the whole behavior or story around the brand. So that's kind of the summary of brand identity, creating a reputation for an entity. And I guess like it's sort of, when you look at the work, you can see if someone has a sensibility for, let's say, color or sensibility for typography. This is across the board, any portfolio. If it's confused, if it's a bunch of stuff, I can't tell who the person is, right? So I need to know, okay, where is the strength of this designer? Every one designer that we hire will have one or two strengths. Ideally, you want them to be really a good, they have an eye. They have an eye means that everything is balanced, is complete. And then, yes, if it happens to be you have some work in English, some work in Japanese, even better. actually is to get that right. It's very competitive in London. I see a lot of the work. And then it comes down to, I think when people hire, it comes down to personality. We all want to hire people who spend a lot of our day with our designers, right? So we don't want to hire someone who's going to be a headache. Yeah. And I'm sure you do the same. Everybody does that.
Okay.
So we want easy people to have around, people who listen, who kind of like don't throw a tantrum if you say, can you try again? This is not working, right?
True.
I've had one designer
Is this your one piece of advice هيك اللي بتعطيها on top for students or
students?
Yeah.
Student specific advice. I think for students today, I know the road might feel long and hard, but things take time, right? Don't expect to be a celebrity from the first year of graduation. We need this. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 3,000 hours of expertise, which is about 3 years of working in any one field. And here you can go granular. If you want to be a good motion designer, you need 3 years of experience working as a motion designer to start seeing the results of your sort of teachings and your voice. So a lot of time, I know in the world of Instagram, everything is immediate and our young generations expect speed. But there is a beauty to time and to sort of giving things the time they need and sort of allowing yourself time to explore where you are and to find your voice.
Definitely. You said there's beauty in time. أنا بحب كلمة charm حلوة هيك let it sink in. يعني.
So, overnight test. We have a lot of this, no? The overnight test. We have a lot of these expressions about allowing things the time they need.
Yeah, true. Samar, أنا كتير انبسطت بالبودكاست معك. يعني abundance of هيك you were so generous with the information and your experience and telling us about how it is being at Pentagram or in the UK. Some things that you said, they were extremely surprising, especially when it comes to women in leadership. At the same time, it makes a lot of, you gave the context. I thank you for your time. Being in Lebanese, I'm very proud that there's someone at Pentagram. أنا حدا بلحق Pentagram من أيام الجامعة يعني. So I love that. I'm very proud of having you on my podcast. To thank you a lot. وبدنا نرجع نقعد كمان قصة AD&D للريجن. Okay. Thank you a lot.
So much. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.